that were shot down onto that top deck. So I think that may be the
On top of that,
difference.
when I have a question about the Mamara, I heard that they stopped at another port and picked up some other, a little bit different than your first aid people, or the people that were coming to break the blockade peacefully. Is that true or is that not true?
There were two stops. The ship left from the port of Istanbul and then went to a second port called Antalya. It was, again, checked there. Anybody that came onto it went through the same security. And in fact, the list of everybody that was on board was vetted through the IHH.
I understand that they took...
Wait, other people questions. You can't dominate it all. She only had 3 questions.
Okay, and we'll just move right on. Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to ask you about when they found bullets. Some of those bullets were not from Israeli guns, by the way. I just want to say that.
That's the purpose of the UN, is to
Yes.
diplomatically settle these type of situations.
Well,
Has there been no UN involvement in
yes,
the
there.
situation?
The Secretary General expressed great concern about the attacks, the deaths of the people on board the ship. The UN has created its panel that supposedly by the UN Security Council was to investigate the events. However, the panel as it was formed then just this last week said that it will review the reports of the parties concerned, the state of Israel and the state of Turkey. Well, that's not all the parties that are concerned, and I have a bone to pick with that, is because we the citizens are not necessarily represented by the state interest of either of those two parties. Even the state of Turkey, I mean, it has long-term relationships with the state of Israel. It purchases military equipment from them. Right now, drones are one of the equipment that is being purchased by Turkey from Israel. Israeli soldiers were actually in Turkey giving training on the drones when the attack happened. They were brought home. Turkish soldiers then went to Israel to continue the training on them. So for me as an international, as a citizen, I want the citizens to be represented, and I want our evidence that we have from our cameras, our cell phones, and our computers to be made available to us so that we can be adequately represented.
Yes. And many people, Dennis Ross, Sherhawk, the whole thing is a Zionist.
Well, there are certainly members of the Jewish faith that are members of government and have been over successive times. And that has happened, that's for sure, as there have been people of various ethnicities and whatever. Yeah. This lady and then this, let's see if anybody else who hasn't asked a question will get back. Yes?
Yeah, when you kind of look globally at the allies for empire building and full spectrum dominance, as they call it, you know that Israel and the U.S. and their other allies are about controlling the planet and getting the resources and everything else that they need to stay in control. And we read that there's 2 miles off the coast of Gaza, huge supplies of natural gas. And so we have to put that in the equation. And I'm just wondering, the other activists that you met, did you get a sense that they have an idea of this whole global thing that we're up against? Because it's Israel-Palestine is very compact, but it's only one microcosm of what's going on globally.
All of us.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the activists on these ships are from all over the world are very sophisticated in their thinking. These are people who would not have just jumped on the boat just because it was a boat ride out to the middle. There was a specific purpose behind what they were doing, and they know everything about it. They were very sophisticated. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that yes, there are these natural gas resources right off the coast of Gaza, and that there's suspicions that some of there's slant drilling that's going on from the just 12 miles up, which is Israel, that there's slant drilling going across to get the resources that should be belonging to the Palestinians of that natural gas. Let me just mention one other thing of the international aspects of all of this. Some of the other Americans that were on board, Ambassador Ed Peck, a 32-year veteran of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps, former U.S. Ambassador to Iraq. Joe Betters, a U.S. Navy veteran, a veteran of the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty 43 years ago that killed 34 people and wounded 174. He came on this because he was in solidarity with the people of Palestine that had been shot up by Israelis. And he was the one person, though, that as he and I went on a speaking tour of Texas in July, and I heard for the first time his whole story about being on that ship. But his first comment was that a lot of people on our flotilla did not anticipate that there would be such violence that the Israeli military would put on the flotilla. But he said, I was very realistic. I knew I was a survivor of what I knew they could do. Yeah, and it's very telling and touching that 43 years ago, in virtually the same spot, there was an attack on a U.S. naval vessel. And one that 43 years ago, the Johnson administration, just as the Obama administration today says, don't embarrass our allies, that's exactly the statement President Johnson made 43 years ago. We won't embarrass our allies. We won't have a real investigation about all of this. Let's see if there's this gentleman, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay, just a slight reverse here, because you mentioned information, and before this event, a lot of the world did not know about the blockade. What is your opinion about this WikiLeaks group, and from just your opinions on it, what you may know from the inside and just in general? Are they wholesome, righteous, or is it possibly a psychops kind of a situation, and it's bigger than what we may think is from a humanitarian point of view?
Well, the WikiLeaks, well, there are two parts of it. One is Bradley Manning, who disclosed the collateral murder video of the helicopter shooting some Iraqi vehicles. Then the other part of it is the disclosure of 75,000 or maybe 90,000 pieces of information, mostly tactical information on events in Afghanistan, primarily Afghanistan, is my understanding. What I would really like to see is exactly what Daniel Ellsberg did 50 years ago I want to see the policy decision documents of how we got into Iraq and Afghanistan. That's what I want to see leaked, and I think it is critically important that those types of documents be leaked so that the Bush administration can be held formally accountable and the Obama administration can be held formally accountable. So it's one thing, nuclear weapons and all that sort of stuff, leaking that sort of stuff, but on these policy things where we know we've been snookered into war yet one more time, and where all the other governments that got snookered into it have at least had the courage to start looking at it. Right now, still the Chilcot Commission is going on in the UK, where they're calling everyone to include Tony Blair to testify before it, and all sorts of amazing things are coming out. We knew about the Downing Street memos years ago, 5 years ago, but there are more things that are coming out because their country at least has the courage to face what happened, whereas ours still is trying to protect things, and that's where I think WikiLeaks and other whistleblowers have a critical part to play in preventing further criminal actions by our government.
This afternoon, our speaker is Dr. Tom Curtis. He's a professor and chair of the Department of Sociology at the University of Hawaii in Hilo, where he has taught since 1995. He is also a licensed psychotherapist and certified disaster mental health specialist. He researched his research and much of his teachings has focused on the psychological and sociological impacts of disasters and terrorism.
And tourism.
Terrorism. And tourism too. Additionally, he is lead